Hi, I'm Megan Skidmore, and this is the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts, not only in a faith journey, but in all aspects of life. Join me in bringing this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the light. I'm a firm believer that we normalize through more talking and engaging in discussion. More talking peels back, exposes, and erases the layers of shame associated with questions and doubts. When we're more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. This month, August of 2023, marks the 1-year anniversary of Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. And simultaneously, we hit 5,000 downloads. I am so excited and appreciative of those who have come on and allowed me to interview them and share their stories, as well as those of you who are listening, downloading, sharing it with friends, subscribing, and leaving reviews. Each of these actions helps this podcast to grow and the messages and stories to spread far and wide. I feel especially grateful because as a podcaster who identifies as a cisgender female, sharing my story as an LGBTQ plus mama of conservative faith, you are amplifying many voices that fall in the marginalized category. So my genuine thanks. I ask you a favor, and that is to subscribe if you have not, share a favorite episode with a friend, and most importantly, take 2 minutes and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. In celebration of this 1-year anniversary and 5,000 downloads, I've extended my podcast giveaway through the end of August. Leave a 5-star review to be entered into a drawing for a $100 gift card that is good at several different restaurants. Go break bread with someone you love. Invite a friend to leave a review, and if their name is drawn, you both win your own gift card. Help me reach my goal of 10,000 downloads by the end of 2023. Link with the info on how to enter is in the show notes or the bio of my Instagram profile. Thank you for being here. Now on to today's episode.
So my daughter lives in North Carolina, and she lives with her boyfriend. And people want to feel sorry for me and mourn for me. But then when they see her, on Instagram, or she came home for Christmas, everybody that runs into her, they tell me, I cannot believe how happy she is. And I will say, she is. She is doing the best that I've ever seen her. She's just happy. She's a great adult. Like, she's making really good choices. She's caring. She's loving. She's paying all her bills on time. She's just doing
She's succeeding at this adulting thing, and
right. She's not Yeah, she's not on a path to sorrow. She's not turned into an alcoholic, or just like, oh, she left the church and this happened, or like, it's really been a lesson for me to say, whoa, hold on, don't paint everybody's journey that leaves the church as not for them, very sorrowful. Maybe this is really the path that they're supposed to go on. And Kaylee, she may not be on a church journey anymore, but she's still on a spiritual journey. She still finds God a lot in nature. I know that she's still a spiritual person. And so I'm still learning lessons. Like I still am. My kids are still teaching me a lot. And I am unraveling some of these old ideas or these old ways of thinking that I'm like, okay, I need to shift my paradigm because that's really not my lived experience anymore. And I'm really confident in raising my hand in classes and say, hey, look at it, this has been my experience, and this has been my point of view with my kids, and they're doing really well. And I don't see God abandoning them. And in fact, God said he wouldn't abandon my son. Yeah. That he will be with my son. So anyways.
I think you brought up a really important observation, and that is what those in your church/civic community, your neighbors, whatever, those that had grown up with you observed when, in this specific case, when your daughter returned home and they could see that she is happy. to me, that just emphasizes the problematic language when we use terms like lost or wayward, or what are some of the other words that you used? Not on a good path, or losing their way.
They're even like lazy learners, lax disciples.
Right.
There is a lot of hurtful language because that's just really not a lot of people's lived experiences.
Right. And one of the things that I have learned in my work as a coach, but also as a human and a mom, is for someone to say or view somebody as lost or wayward, sinning, becoming darker, is actually more of a reflection perhaps on me or whoever the speaker is, rather than that individual. It's a reflection of their views, right? And wherever they might be at in their life, because what might look like to someone as lost could actually mean they were pushed out, or what may look like quote unquote wayward, whatever that might mean, could actually be someone genuinely trying to reconcile their lived experience in their identity, for instance, with the messages that they have been receiving, whether from home, society, a civic or a faith community, or what is labeled as losing their light. Could actually be somebody suffering from depression or anxiety or other significant health challenges due to lack of mental, physical, spiritual support. Perhaps they just have a resting face, quote unquote, resting face that's just solemn or chill or serious, right? Who knows? I just think it's so important to be aware of what we're saying and how it sounds, and reserve judgment. Just suspend any judgment calls, labeling, whatever. Leave that up to the Savior. Leave that up to God.
And also, I think it's opening your heart to be open to maybe really that is the journey they're supposed to be on.
Yeah.
And God's okay with that. Just be like, you don't have to be okay with it. And that doesn't have to be your journey, but just be open to like, you know what? If that's your experience, I believe you. I believe you. I love you. I believe you. And I wish you the very best on your journey, your spiritual journey, or whatever it is. I really do. Because I'm on this journey, and I hope you believe me when I tell you things about my journey, and I want to believe you. And let's just stay open that it's not always black and white, It's either this or that. I'm a huge proponent of both and.
Yes.
And I think if we could get to where we were both and in a lot of things, it can be both. And it can, and like it can be two things at once. And I think that's hard for some people. It was hard for me, like, honestly, like I've been on both sides of the fence now, and it's really fresh, 5 years or so ago, what I was thinking and feeling. So I feel like I have grace for people who are still in that narrower mindset. I feel like I can give them some grace because I was there, and I know you're thinking. And now I'm on the other side. And so, I feel like my heart was like the Grinch's, where at the end of the movie, it goes from like a little teeny heart to like, come on, and
explodes.
It's a painful experience, but boy, I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't go back at all.
Yeah. Cause you had mentioned earlier this analogy of the fruits. You had been taught that, I'll know by their fruits what, of their goodness, right? And if you look at the fruits of this approach of judgment or labeling, I mean, in my experience, that drives wedges.
It does.
It builds bridges. It does not build bridges. Sorry. And if anything, it adds more bricks to any walls that might be there. Rather than dismantling them, I guess.
Right.
I really like this theme of talking about worth. What a beautiful moment that was a minute ago when you kind of had that aha moment listening to me reread your post of this struggle that you had, that you were possibly having with your own conception of your own worth, right? I wanted to talk a little bit about worth. We talk a lot about that in the LDS faith, and I looked it up. Okay.
Yeah, what does it say?
It's of Hebrew origin. It means value, equalization, importance, significance, magnitude. Those were some of the words. And then it gives the word in Hebrew. I'll put it in the show notes because I can't read the letters, the characters, I should say.
Yeah.
But the concept is of seeing. It means literally seen, SEEN.
Mm.
You know, we believe that our human dignity originates from God and is of God because we are made in God's own image and likeness. And human life is sacred because the human person is the most central and clearest reflection of God among us. I love words. I love descriptions because I think historically we treat worth more as a quantitative thing, mm-hmm. right? Checking boxes.
Yeah.
And perhaps even a moral qualitative thing. And I think that can be dangerous. Whereas if we just look at it in this historically, I'm assuming the reference that I found, and I will put it in the show notes. I'm always open to feedback. Our worth, it's this concept of just literally being seen. I'd love to know your thoughts about that.
I will agree with you. Like it is, are we worthy enough? Are we checking the boxes so we can be worthy for that temple recommend? Or I think we use it in the wrong context, maybe. We all grew up with that word, and I feel like, so I'm a big proponent of finding help outside of, church or whatever, because there wasn't a lot of help for me. So I got a life coach. And I've also, if you've ever, Valerie Hamaker, the Latter-day Saint Struggles. Yes. I was in a few months of her groups. She does some group work if, I know she has wait lists for it now, but super, super helpful. And she mentioned one time, your worth has already been established before you even came here. Your worth, you cannot add to it and you cannot take away. And I had to sit with that. And I was like, you're right. Mm-hmm. Our worth in the sight of God, I can't add or take away from that. I am worthy. I am seen. I am loved. And that, like, I can't do anything to make God not love me any less than my neighbor. And that was just really pivotal. I think I mentioned that one time in a Relief Society class that like my worth is already established. And I mentioned something like that and I know people were like, what? Like, what are you saying? Like, you're completely wrong. Or maybe I made some people think, but I think we use that word entirely wrong. And I think that word is triggering. It can be triggering to hear worthiness interviews. I mean, don't you remember like them being called that, worthiness interviews? And it can produce a lot of anxiety with people. It can produce shame, and we all know where shame comes from. Shame is not from God.
I have learned how to kind of reassess the way that I view this concept of worth. And I agree with what you quoted, semi-quoted, Valerie is saying, our worth, it is inherent. It existed. It has always existed, and it's inchangeable. It's that idea of our human dignity. It originates and is of God because we are of God. We are a reflection of God. And that is a concept I have had to kind of call into question and reassess how I view and understand it. So I appreciate that very much.
Right. And I sometimes find myself pulling back to my old way of thinking because, those those pathways in my brain are deep. They're really deep, and I'm trying to make new pathways. And I find myself, and I'm like, no, stop using that word in that way. We need to think of it, and honestly, it's brought a lot of peace into my life where I'm at in my journey. I'm good. Like
Right.
I'm so good. I'm happy. And I'm not scared of my heavenly parents. Like I'm not scared of God like I used to be, or, I'm not measuring up. I'm not measuring up. I'm not doing everything. I didn't get to the temple last month. I'm so sorry. I'm going to repent. I don't do that anymore. And I feel like I can breathe.
And I caught that you brought this up once in a group meeting at church. I think you said the Relief Society class. And that's not easy. It's not easy to bring up these new concepts as we are, not new concepts, but our new understandings. That's not an easy thing to do, to be authentic, to be vulnerable about where we're at in a group setting such as that. So, kudos to you for doing that. And that brings up a question I'll sometimes ask my guests, is this idea of safe spaces. I have come to realize how it's not always a clear thing for people to understand what is meant by a safe space. So if you were to share with our listeners this idea of being able to be authentic, to be vulnerable in a safe space, in other words, be in the presence of others. And you're basically, facing this fear of rejection or loss or no longer belonging or whatever. So what would your thoughts be that you could share regarding creating safe spaces? What is that to you?
Just like you said, it's like some of the best lessons. I remember teaching Relief Society, being a teacher, and some of the best lessons I had were the ones where the Spirit just took off, and I did maybe a quarter of my lesson that I would prepared, but it was the Spirit, and people felt like we had a few people that would share hard things. They would share personal stories, and I think a safe space in classes honestly is where you can share and you feel like you're being heard and seen. So if I'm going to share something, I usually try and, like, especially if it's kind of the opposite of a comment that somebody else just said, you know what I mean? Yeah, I usually will say, oh, I totally get that. But just in my experience, and I always use that, just in my experience, I've seen it this way. And that's how it's, that's how I felt the Spirit, or that, and I put it all on myself. That this is just Kim talking. And it's so, when I've brought up vulnerable times, like I remember a couple of weeks ago talking vaguely about the answer that I got about Ben over the kitchen sink, because we were talking about that scripture says you will have a peace that passeth all understanding. And that scripture brought me a lot of personal, like, it just brought me a peace at that time, because I didn't really understand that Heavenly Father would tell me that, something like that, but it brought me such peace. And so I was able to relay that to the class, that, hey, this is just what happened to me. It may not be your experience, and it may be your experience in the future, but I just felt like it was important to let you guys know that. I also think if we do not feel like we can share and be vulnerable in our classes, how can we ever expect to enact our baptismal covenants, to bear one another's burdens, comfort one another, grieve with one another? If I don't know what's happening with you, how can I hold your burden for a minute while you're in class? I think talking and sharing our burdens is therapeutic. And having someone come up and give you a hug afterwards and say, I'm so glad you shared that with me. Thank you. And just being heard and seen is holding someone's burden and maybe giving them a little bit of comfort. And isn't that what church should be? Shouldn't we go there to be healed because we're all sick? And we just want to come and we want to share. Like, and in my Relief Society, nobody shares, hardly anybody shares personal stuff or, hey, I'm kind of having some hard times with this or this or this. They don't want to be labeled as that person and be shoved to the outside.
And that's the challenge, right? To be the one to be first to talk, so to speak. I think that's probably more common, right? I have taught lessons as well, and I find, and I'm going to state right up front, it's not easy. It's not easy to pull your guard down and just stand up there emotionally naked, for lack of a better term, and just share your stuff. But I have found that the more I do that, others tend to follow suit. Mm-hmm. They feel more open or maybe safe sharing if somebody else has led. But it's not always easy to be that first one. To me, I had this thought while you were speaking. It's that both/and piece that you mentioned before. It's that either or, 50-50, black and white tendency to think that way. That's what keeps us, I believe, from moving forward. And that was such a beautiful way that you put it. If I don't feel safe sharing my struggles, then how are we really and truly going to be able to fulfill our baptismal covenants to mourn with each other and be there and support? I've never thought of it that way. That's wow.
Well, and we're all carrying tremendous burdens. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are right now. We're all carrying tremendous burdens. And why not have Relief Society, especially, be a place to come and be comforted and to have someone else help hold your burden just for a minute. Just let me help you with your, let me hold this for just a minute and listen to you and try and understand you and give you a hug and say, I love you. Yeah. You can do this. Or what can I do to help? Like that would be the ultimate church for me, would just be, we can all go and be really vulnerable and try and understand each other's situations and just cheer each other on instead of,
I would say that is the dream of mine too. The only thing I would add is that it's not gendered anymore because those that identify, that's one thing I have a hard time with, is the Relief Society versus the priesthood.
Yes.
There's not a place for those that identify differently in the gender spectrum. Yes. But I absolutely agree with the feeling of being able to walk in there and just share your heart and know that you're going to be received with open, loving arms that will embrace you versus judgment or looks or stares or worse, silence and someone kind of staying away or walking the other way, whatever the case may be. So yeah, definitely some wonderful golden nuggets, different ideas to tuck away.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course.
I am not always strong. And there are some Sundays when I'm not strong enough, and I just deal with my anxiety, or I don't go to class and I minister in the foyer, because those people that are in the foyer, especially like maybe our trans people that can't go anywhere but the foyer, or they walk home.
Yeah.
That's where you can do a lot of ministering.
And that is 100% valid, Kim. And I'm so glad that you said that.
I'm not trying to paint myself as like this great leader, and I'm always, because it depends on the Sunday. And I'll tell you what, I've given the label, it's called the Saturday Night Scaries. And my anxiety for Sunday starts Saturday night, and I call them the Saturday Night Scaries.
No, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's not going to be effective. There's 3 zones, right? If you envision a circle, you've got the inner circle, which is your zone of comfort. People tend to stay there. It's like a nice, warm, fuzzy blanket. and there is room enough in this blanket to just wrap you completely up and you're comfortable. And then there's the zone of growth. And that's one ring right outside of that zone of comfort where you're uncomfortable. You're pushing yourself, but you're not going to hit an emotional overload, or you're not going to break down, I guess we could say. Then the third ring outside of that is what we call our zone of panic. Nothing gets done that's productive in the zone of panic. That's where the shutdown occurs. That's where sometimes you can almost go backwards, right? We don't ever want to push our nervous systems outside of where we're actually able to function. And there is a difference between feeling the nerves or the jitters. I remember as a kid feeling that when it was Testimony Sunday and I'd want to go up and wear my testimony. Those nerves, that's different than complete shutdown. And it's going to be different for every single person. What causes my nervous system to trigger is going to be totally different than what causes your nervous system to trigger. And it is so important to honor that within ourselves and recognize and honor it in others. And so I'm really glad that you brought that up, because by saying be first or be one of the ones to stand up and say, yeah, that might be you. It might not be you.
Yeah.
It could be you one-on-one with your child first and foremost. Right. That's still being vulnerable. Right. That is still being authentic. It can still be scary. You don't have to do it in front of an entire room of people for it to be valid.
Yeah. Yeah. And I almost feel bad sometimes because honestly, I think for our LGBTQ people and their families, it seems like a lot of them follow their child out of the church. It just isn't a safe place. They don't feel belonging. I feel like an anomaly. And I feel like I don't want people to look at me and say, well, she's doing it. She's staying in the church. She's got, she's handling it all really well. This is just my own journey. And I realize and recognize that for many families, it just isn't possible. In fact, we have some families in my ward right now, and they are just not coming anymore. And I know why. And that is their journey. That I validate that. I validate that it is just not somewhere where they can go, right, where I can still go. Yes. Even though it's, it's painful and anxiety filled and stuff, I'm still finding myself going. And I find it's like kind of a mission of mine, because I can kind of redirect conversations. And if I'm able to, I want to, but I recognize that it's just not that way for so many families.
Yes. And I appreciate you saying that. And it goes back to that personal revelation piece, right? Each of our journeys is just that. It is personal. This has been amazing and so enlightening and beautiful on so many levels. My one last question is, Kim, what does it mean to you to live beyond the shadow of doubt?
Okay, so that was such a unique question. And I remember just like, what does that even mean? And living beyond the shadow of a doubt means, I don't know, it was just something I'd never really thought of that before, because it's not that I don't have doubts. I have plenty of doubts, and I have plenty of things that I've just had to set down, and I just don't pick them up, and I just kind of do things my own way. But I feel like it's carrying on, living beyond that doubt is, you're going to have doubts, and and it's finding your journey however you want it. If it's important to you to stay connected with God and Christ, it's finding that journey beyond your doubts. Wow. And I love Chieko Okazaki, and her words have brought me such peace and such acceptance. And so I wrote down one of her quotes I wanted to share. I think living beyond the shadow of doubt can be like finding your own spiritual authority, right? I'm finding my way beyond these doubts, and they don't have to cripple me, but I'm finding my way and I'm finding my journey. And so she says, be spiritually independent enough that your relationship with the Savior doesn't depend on your circumstances or what other people say and do. Have the spiritual independence to be a Mormon, the best Mormon you can in your own way, not the bishop's way, not the Relief Society president's way, but your way.
I love that.
Your way.
What was that taken from?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I would Google Cheiko Okasaki and then put in quotes, be spiritually independent.
Okay. I will do that.
I think it was a conference talk. And then
Okay.
she also, this was one more, and she says, please don't think that you must make footprints exactly the same way everybody else does. She says, I'm here to tell you that you can do it in your own way. And there are many ways of being righteous, and there are many ways of being Mormon. And I thought, thank you, because I feel like this is my church too. Can you accept me? Can you accept my ways of thinking? Because I want to go and worship with you, and I feel called to go to church. And sometimes I feel like if you're not all in, you're out, and we don't want you. Why are you here? So yeah, I just think it's finding your way when you're pushed out into the weeds, and you're not on that usual path anymore, and you're kind of lost, and
there's no
grasping. Yeah, you're grasping for direction, and how do I do this? How do I deal with something that comes up, even church history, right? There's just so many things that you're just like baby steps, right? Baby steps.
I love your viewpoint. That's really lovely, really beautiful, and I love Cheiko's words as well. So
I'll email you that quote so you can put it in your notes.
Yeah,
I'll find where I got that from and email it to you.
I would love it. Kim, thank you so very much for your time. So just to get to know you a teeny bit more, I have a short list of questions that I ask all my guests. 1 or 2 word answers is all I'm looking for. Just for fun. What is your favorite book?
Goodness. Probably one I just read, Where the Crawdads Sing.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I just read that one.
I think I've read that one too. I'm one of those who I can read a book or watch a movie and then forget and redo it. And it's like I'm seeing it for the first time. I think I've read that one, actually. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I am both.
You're both.
I am a extroverted introvert. And once I knew you could have it both ways, you could be a little bit of both. I was like, yes, that's
both and split.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. What about a favorite artist?
Like music or painting? Either. Or you choose. Any? I really love music. And right now it's Taylor Swift, because that's what my kids are listening to. And I've gotten into her lyrics, and wow, she's a really good songwriter. Really enjoy her words. Yeah.
Amazing. What about, do you consider yourself a night owl or a morning lark?
A morning lark.
You're one of
if I have to choose.
Do you have a celebrity crush?
No.
That's okay. You don't have to.
I don't really.
What about still or carbonated water? Or do you do diet soda?
Soda without gas. If you go to Europe and you ask for water, they'll give you carbonated water. And I found that out by mistake.
Yes.
Just still water. Well, I do like flavor. Add a little bit of flavor.
Yeah. And then finally, the furthest place you've traveled.
Germany.
That's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
Germany.
Loved beautiful. It there. I could live there. It was very beautiful. Very beautiful. Good food.
Totally. So. Well, if folks had questions for you or wanted to connect with you, what would be the easiest way for them to do that?
Probably maybe reach out to me either on Facebook, or I can even give my email. I do not mind giving out my email. If people,
I can put that in the show notes.
I've had certain people reach out to me over the years just saying, hey, I'm just new to this. Can you help me through? And I do have like a whole kind of vault of really good readings that I send new state presidencies and bishops a packet with just the cream of the crop, really good sources. Like, this is what I wish I would have had. Perfect. And I'll even send them books like, Richard Osler's book. I've sent that to presidencies, mailed it in the mail. Like, that's how weird I am. But if anybody's looking for sources like that to give their bishops or stake presidents, I don't mind sharing my stuff at all.
I will do that. I will put your email in the show notes, and that's a great resource to know about. So thank you so very much. Kim, it has been
it's been fun. This was fun.
Dear. Yeah, it was. Thank you so much for your time.
It was good talking to you.
You too. Come join me in Hopeful Spaces, a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, which is sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. Hopeful Spaces is a monthly parent, caregiver, and ally support group facilitated by Megan Skidmore Coaching. To join is free. Simply send an email to chc@dallashopecharities.org. Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com, where you can find this podcast, as well as additional free resources. Check the podcast show notes on any platform for links to sources cited. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more and to send me a DM. To help the podcast grow, please follow, rate, and review, as well as share it with a friend. Beyond the Shadow of Doubt is a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, which is a part of the Dialogue Journal found at dialoguejournal.com/podcast network. Founder Eugene England was a Mormon writer, teacher, and scholar who wrote, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue. My hope is that this podcast is an extension of that vision." Thanks for being here. Until next time.